Good morning, everybody. Once again, we're just about to start our session.
Sure.
So, hello, everyone. I hope you're keeping the best of health. My name is Sarita, and I, along with my colleague Isha, would be the moderators for today's exciting event. I would firstly like to thank you for removing time out of your busy schedule to attend this Power Hour session hosted by Robyn Ise. Power Hour is a series of interactive roundtable discussions amongst industry stalwarts, where they would be sharing their experiences and insights about a particular topic. So the topic for today's discussion would be realigning product roadmaps, strategies for product management in post-pandemic world. So before we start, I would like to have a few housekeeping tips for you. In case you cannot hear your audio, you have the instructions on your screens. Please follow it so that you can hear us. All attendees will be on mute by default. Please raise your hand if you have any query or post it in the chat window. Any questions can be posted through the Q&A panel. We will try and attend all questions during session. The ones that remain shall be answered via a follow-up email. A recording shall be made available to all attendees within a few days. So that brings us to introducing our host today. Our host for today's roundtable is Dr. Vikash Joshi. Dr. Vikash Joshi is a business leader who is passionate about product development and technology entrepreneurship. His mission is to help create software products that make a difference, and a key part of that mission is to inspire tech professionals and entrepreneurs to grow and develop. We welcome you, Vikas, and the stage is all yours. Thank you, everyone. I hope you'll have a great time in this session.
Thank you, Sarita, and good morning, everybody, and a warm welcome to my co-panelists, whom I will introduce in a moment. Product management, in many ways, works at the very core of a business because it has overlaps with strategy, product market fit, customer experience, pricing, operations, many different facets of the business. So we want to focus on roadmaps, and we want to make sense of the uncertainty that surrounds us and how product managers are using the situation in a way that would create competitive advantage for their companies. And we're going to hear their stories. Obviously, some of the examples we have chosen for illustration are monetizing data, upgrading user experience, modernizing products, and building ecosystem integrations, but those are just illustrations. The larger point that we want to make is how product management can align with business strategy, which in turn has to align with market shifts. So a quick check here in terms of today's focus. We are going to focus on roadmap decisions. Now, there are a ton of different things that a product manager will tell you as their concerns, right? They have to be worried about upgrading their value propositions, pricing and packaging decisions, whether to discount or whether to create additional value, M&A possibilities in acquiring struggling players, competitive moves, post-crisis capacity building, remote team management, as in their own teams are remote now. So how do they take some of their product management processes and take them remote? All those are important issues. We're not going to talk about any of those. We're going to stay focused on roadmap decisions. That's our focus today. And we have a great panel today to have that discussion with. We have Potoula, Rich, Robyn, and Steve. And I'm going to request them to introduce themselves and also tell us what makes them interested in this topic? Starting with you, Potoula.
Hey everyone, I'm so happy to be on the panel. Thank you so much, Vikas and Harbinger, for organizing this and inviting us all to this interesting discussion. I'm Potoula Chresomales. I head up product management and UX for Skillsoft. Skillsoft is a corporate e-learning company. It's a global company. We count 65% of the Fortune 500 as our customers. We're fortunate and honored with that, and we help them grow, and we help them build the skill sets inside their organization to help them achieve their strategic goals. So my interest in this discussion is to see how we might take this opportunity where there's a lot of change in the marketplace to get actually even closer to our customers, to really have our finger on their pulse and understand what's happening inside their organizations and how we can help them emerge from COVID stronger than they were before, with better growth opportunities than they had before. And I believe a lot of that is in the hands of their people and helping their people be ready for those challenges.
And Potoula, you have a background in business strategy, in business development, and in, product management. Does all of that help you in any particular way to navigate these times?
Yeah, all of that comes together to navigate these times. So, this is not business as usual, not for us and not for our clients. So our clients' priorities have shifted dramatically in the last few months. The way that means that there's shifts for us, not just in the roadmap, but in the way we bring that to market to our clients, in the way we get very, very specialized in how we support different customer segments and get deeper in how we help them achieve value. So we're looking at deepening our products and our feature sets and our platforms for each of the markets in which we specialize.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you like to go next, Rich?
Happy to, and a pleasure to be here as well. My name is Rich Gallagher. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Energage. We're a leading, for those who don't know us, we're a leading employer recognition provider, helping our global community of nearly 10,000 customer organizations achieve and recognize their authentic and otherwise high-performing company cultures. Why am I interested in this topic? A couple reasons. One, this is really core to my background and what I do. I've been leading product and technology development organizations for more than 20 years, primarily in B2B SaaS offerings, human resources, talent management, media research, and healthcare. So this idea of creating commercial value, particularly within complex marketplaces, is highly motivating to me. Second, our current condition is really hard. In a matter of days across the world, everything changed. But if we're willing to be honest, it's not just one change. It appears to be a progression of changes. And we also really just don't know the extent of it and whether or not it's temporary or permanent. And that just creates, again, a level of challenge, to the roles that we do. Lastly, what I'd say on a personal note, I've always been most motivated at that intersection of really hard and really important work. And we are absolutely in unprecedented times. Companies are under enormous pressure to maintain engagement with their employees and sustain winning cultures, despite now having this highly virtualized and personally and professionally stressful working condition. So our current condition certainly meets the criteria for really hard, really important work.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Robyn?
Sure, and thank you so much for allowing me to join today. My name is Robyn Ise. I'm Chief Technology Officer for TargetCW, which is a global payrolling company. We provide employer of record and MSP services for our customers, and also custom built our own proprietary software, Staffing Nation, which allows clients to manage their contingent workforce. So I'm interested in this topic because we are in the thick of this exact topic right now. We've always been a nimble company and not afraid to make investments to deliver where we think the market is headed. But the pandemic has kind of allowed us not to rest on our laurels and actually go yet even more bold as far as product innovation. So this is driven by our CEO, who has always had the confidence to take big risks. But I'd say risks usually, pay off in innovation, right? So we're innovating, but at the same time, under this pandemic, we're keeping our daily operations running lean where we can. And really, that's the same thing that's hit all of our customers. So I think we're all in it together.
Right. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
And welcome, Steve.
Sure. Thanks, Vikas, and just thank you to the Harbinger team for including me as part of this panel. So my name's Steve Heister. I'm the Chief Product Officer with SkillSurvey. Our mission is to help create great companies find, hire, and retain great people. We do this using science, data, IO psychology, best practices to highlight data-driven insights for talent acquisition and talent management teams. So we've reinvented the reference checking process by presenting a method where references respond confidentially to job-specific competency-based questions regarding their observations on job candidate soft skills. So what we do with those results is we norm those results against thousands of other candidates that have taken similar surveys to provide predictive insights into potential success and turnover. And recently, we've gone into the post-hire space to kind of go across that hiring decision and help people who have made decisions in investing in their people that now how do you protect that investment, right? How do you make sure that those people are here for the long haul? How do you improve retention and engagement? So today's panel discussion is particularly interesting to me, given the effect that the current pandemic has had on hiring and employment practices. It's more critical than ever to listen to the data, listen to the voice of your customer to make the right short and long-term product decisions that will make sense for your clients and your company. The pandemic's changed the hiring process as well as how individuals interact at work. So for many, that means recruiting and recruiters and managers need to adapt to be sure that they know what to look for in making that right hire or understanding when there may be an area for improvement within their organization. So with that said, I mean, it's times like these we try to utilize data to highlight information that can help them and us make the right decision. I mean, as product teams, our job is not only to help our company navigate uncertainty, but also to create value by helping our clients do so as well. So this topic is particularly interesting for a variety of different reasons to me.
Absolutely. I think one of the themes we will keep revisiting today is going to be, the prioritization between the backlogs and the new opportunities. And developing new stuff and integrating with what exists, building and partnering. So there's so much out there to talk about. Really excited to be with you. Thank you once again. And just moving on, our game plan today is in 3 parts. We're going to spend only a couple of minutes talking about the market and then dive deeper into business strategies that companies use and what those strategies mean for product development. Our vantage point at Harbinger is that we get to work with dozens of tech companies, and we do have a seat at the table in terms of understanding how they are thinking about their opportunities and their markets. So this is the big draw for me of this business. I get to interact with individuals like you and learn from all of you. So really excited about this. And finally, we're going to go into how are companies prioritizing and pacing their product roadmap items, because once you have a strategy, then it clearly flows into the product management. And so we're going to sort of go in that sequence. So jumping into shifts in the market, there's really 3 key things that we can talk about. One is the customer priorities are changing. We heard that just now. And these changing customer priorities are not evident. In other words, one has to make specific effort to reach out and elicit them, and sometimes they may not even be clear to the customers in a way that they could articulate. So one has to sort of tacitly infer them from customer actions. So changing customer priorities is big. Changing user behaviors. Clearly, everybody's, for one thing, working from home. Well, that's a huge change of user behavior. And there are other user behaviors that are changing. And finally, reduced capacity. What I mean by that is not just reduced capacity in terms of you have a smaller team to work with because of cost cutting or whatever. I'm talking about the reduced capacity on the part of the customer their reduced staffing and their reduced capacity to evaluate your products and to implement your products. Now, how do you respond to that? How do you make it easy for them to adopt your products? So those are some of the shifts we see. And if you look at some recent surveys, I mean, right there, what's at number one? Support remote working environments, right? That's what the marketplace expects from SaaS vendors. And then, of course, there's a long list of other things. Involve digital events, focus on specific industries, rely on integrations, new product development, and so on. Looking at another survey here, actually this is 4 different surveys, but the trends that jump out of these are a lot of collaborative buying, collaborative in spite of being at different places, working from home, cloud-based architectures. 96% of companies have shifted their go-to-market model to remote selling. So that would have a large number of implications in terms of how you design the product to make it easy to sell, easy to demonstrate, easy to try, easy to buy, easy to return, because that in turn makes it easy to buy. And finally, reduced engineering budgets. 36% reduction in tech job postings in July, according to Indeed.com, and that's a proxy for tech budgets. So those are the shifts in the market to which now businesses must respond. And if you look at business strategies for these times to respond to the market shifts, if most companies are thinking like us, their foremost priority should be to conserve cash. That's a no-brainer. But then the harder question is, do we throw all the resources we have at protecting current customers, at making customer-centric investments, making sure that we do not lose our customers, delight them, hold on to them? Or do we carve out some budgets and pivot to new opportunities? New opportunities are tempting because customer needs are changing. So obviously the market's moving elsewhere and we need to be there. On the other hand, how do we know that changes to customer behaviors and needs will persist long enough for the pivot to be successful? Or is this just something for a few months and things are going to return to normal? In other words, the question is, how do we know that we are not overreacting to this uncertainty in the market? And this is a perfect time to turn to the panelists to ask them what strategies they are seeing used in their businesses. So I'll do that right away. And I'll just leave this open to you and ask you, what are you hearing from the top execs and your other peers and your board? And how are your companies responding to the market shift? Maybe 1 or 2 strategic highlights, conserving cash, pivoting, staying the course, doubling down on customer-centric investments. All yours.
Yeah, I can start. We've been thinking a lot about how our customers' priorities are changing. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you, Vikas. It's difficult for customers to articulate that. So mm-hmm. we try more to talk about what problem are you trying to solve right now? And our key stakeholders have a lot of new problems to solve. And so we've been focusing our product visioning and our product roadmap on helping them solve those new problems that we think are going to persist. So for example, a lot of our clients are slowing down hiring, and they want to reskill the people that are already there to do the open positions that exist inside the company. So there's a lot of reskilling and upskilling going on. When we talk to our customers, they describe how they're doing it today. And it's difficult for them to do. But there's a great product opportunity for us to make a streamlined way to do that from within our product, which is an e-learning platform and a lot of e-learning courses. So we've been focusing on that. We've developed a product line of learning paths that help you fill very difficult to fill positions like DevOps and blockchain engineering and things that are very hard for people to hire into. So we believe that to be a persistent, that will emerge as a persistent need going forward. So that's been our focus. Like, what are the problems that are new to solve? And then how can we help solve the problems that we think will persist? The reskilling is that one example.
I agree with that. This is Steve. If I could add, I think it's a complicated balance that you have to strike, and you have to. I think the key is asking as many questions as possible to your client base, and just making sure, to your point, that they may not always kind of know what information to give you. You got to dig for it. You got to ask the right questions to make sure you understand what's going on in their world. For us, you know, on the surface, it's not necessarily pulling back on product. Because when you come out of this, when we come out of this, whenever it does, you want to make sure that you're positioned as well as you possibly can be against the competition, right? You want to be at that top in that leader position. So for us, we had a lot of questions that we asked. I mentioned before, rolling out a post-hire product that's diving into retention and engagement deeper. Well, when we talk to our clients about this, when the pandemic hit, we found that, you know, a lot of attention does turn internally to really understanding the needs of their employees. And what's working, what's not working, areas for improvement. So it made more sense for us to continue down that path and actually double down on that path. However, an adjustment we made was the fact that you've brought it up, the remote workforce right now. The fact that people are working remotely is huge. With our reference checking capabilities, what we've always done is asked the competencies and dug into the competencies that were key to success for working remotely. But what we didn't do was highlight that in a special certain way. And we said, wow, what an opportunity, because people don't know necessarily what to look for when they're hiring for remote workers. So how do we bring attention to that in a way that's, you know, relevant now for people, a huge enhancement and something that people are asking for in droves. So that's where we adjusted our roadmap as well to make sure that we focused more attention in on that. You know, because that's what we were hearing from our customers. So you got to look at the long term, make sure you're maintaining the long-term vision, make sure that long-term vision hasn't changed fundamentally based on the world's events. And if so, keep your path, but look short-term as well and see, are there small wins, you know, interim wins that you can make to really help your customers out, especially with the challenges that they're facing today.
Sure. Wonderful. So great. Thanks for those thoughts, and we'll keep advancing, and, you know, also get more from you as we go. This brings us to our core topic, which is product roadmaps in uncertain times. And what we have to start with is the questions companies are asking about how to reprioritize their product portfolios. And then we're going to illustrate this recalibration process using three different ideas purely for illustration purposes. One is monetizing data, the other is modernizing products, and the third is building integrations. And the panelists are welcome to talk about other aspects of recalibrating their product roadmaps. What we need is, at the end of the day, real life stories that we can all learn from. Mm-hmm. So let's dive right into it. Mm-hmm. The first issue is one about reprioritizing product portfolio. Most of our customers have more than one product, as I'm sure several of you do. And the question to ask is, now is the planning horizon shortened? You know, you probably had like a, I don't know, maybe you had like a 1-year plan or a 6-month plan or, you know, 3-year vision, what have you. Has suddenly this change and uncertainty sort of forced you to look at a much shorter time horizon? That's one thing to reflect upon. The other thing is, how are your product portfolio priorities changing? For example, just the way we heard just now, some companies may focus on their revenue generating product leaving the rest on the back burner. Or we know another company, they're a recruiting platform, and they're investing in an onboarding product. Now, this is a customer-centric investment because they already have these customers who are now, in need of this next thing, which is the onboarding solution. So that's a customer-centric investment. We know of a country unit of a large payroll company that's investing in an HR platform. Now here, you're talking about diversification, moving into a different area. So this is something that gives a good framework to think about portfolio priorities. Are we going to do more of the same, or are we going to divide our eggs in multiple baskets? And then the other thing is, in terms of development priorities, what's changing? Just to give you an example, we have a product that lets you add engagement and interactions in a live classroom. Okay, it's called Reactivity. And one of the decisions we were contemplating was to build a certain functionality that would allow the instructors to carry on some of these games in parallel to a virtual collaboration platform. Just think 2 devices. And then the other option that we are thinking about is tighter integrations with Zoom and Slack. Given that their APIs are not that open, we were a little concerned, but now with the pressure from Microsoft Teams and Google, who are really permitting a much bigger ecosystem integration, we would expect the other players to open out their platforms enough for us to build those integrations. And then if we can build those integrations, then we don't need to build the features, right? So that choice between building and integrating is another fascinating one. So I'm going to take this to our panel again and ask them essentially this question, how have their portfolio priorities changed? And we heard one example of that, but maybe there are others. So I'll let them weigh in on this.
Yeah, I'd be happy to start. One thing I guess I'd say for our audience is to keep in mind a couple of things. Virgin Orbit, which is a company that provides launch services to the satellite industry, is now making ventilators. Mm-hmm. The brands Gucci, Yves Saint Laurent, as well as Prada are making masks. Mm-hmm. And to Big Barrel Distillery in Kentucky in the US is now mm-hmm. making hand sanitizer, where before they were making craft bourbons and whiskeys. And so, again, I can tell you those products were not on their roadmaps when they started this year, and likely not on their roadmaps when they started the month of March. But that goes to show how quickly things can change, for sure. Energage specifically, many of our companies have traditionally considered employee engagement and company cultures to be a strategic consideration. And many of our products and solutions for companies were valued in terms of customer health over months and years of engagement. But COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the expanding Black Lives Matters movement, has forced companies to really think of those in a real tactical focus. And so we've had to respond to that. And so when we look at our market solutions, we're looking at them in terms of how can we accelerate the critical adoption to meet those expectations of the companies. And so we're allowing companies to go from uncertainty to clarity and from problem to solution in days, not weeks or months. And for most of our companies, our solutions support a 48-hour turnaround. Very different than what companies are used to, but what is absolutely needed for companies today. In addition to that, we've had to expand our set of solutions to be very tactically and topically relevant. And so whether it's remote working, supporting organizations as they embrace the remote working condition, as Steve alluded to, companies now that are really having to focus on caregiver support, especially caregivers of school-age children, and of course diversity and equity and inclusion. Mm-hmm. And then following on, given the duration that we're experiencing, just this idea of how do you achieve sustainable employee wellness, we've had to be very, very pinpoint focused on bringing those solutions to market, but in this, again, this highly accelerated go from problem to solution. And so And then in addition to that, we've had to recognize that our customers are really a bit wrecked, right? They're all operating to some extent in a haze or a fog, trying to balance personal and professional considerations, keep their organizations running. And so even though they're providing us feedback, we've had to keep, filters on that feedback just to make sure we can separate the drama, so to speak, or the confusion from what is reasonable feedback, and make sure that we're actioning on just the most relevant portions. And not only that, but they're asking us for additional help. All right, where before our DIY solutions would have been more than satisfactory for a company to just execute it on their own. Now they're asking us for help, and they're asking us whether we can do it with them, right? Mm-hmm. And so we've had to double down on our customer success and customer engagement just to make sure that we can help them keep moving, because left to their own devices, they just wouldn't be able to keep doing it. And we want that to happen. And so we've really had to look across not just the feature functionality of our solutions, but just how they're packaged and delivered and supported to our marketplace in order to meet the demand of the market.
That's fascinating. I just want to double click on one thing you mentioned, which was the agility and turning around in a matter of hours. Once you hear new customer needs. My specific question is, has that changed the culture of the work group of the product management team? Because all of a sudden, your task description is very different now. The speed at which you need to respond is very different.
Well, I think that it has. Technology can move very quickly. So technology in many cases isn't the obstacle, right? This ability to continuously build and deploy, it's been there for years and years, right? Yeah. But to a certain extent, companies set themselves into a certain cycle. They set themselves into a cadence. And part of that cadence is just the ability to move together. Part of that cadence is control, so to speak. And some of it's just wanting to get it right and make sure that you have it right. And so in many ways, we've had to reset our expectations for how to bring solutions to market that aren't obstructed by any bureaucracy or any things that would otherwise represent a lack of courage, right? And so what we've done is we've essentially empowered our product owners to be more courageous, right? To interpret the data more aggressively. We've shortened our horizons. And so we're more aggressively evaluating success and failure of the things that we do. And when they succeed, we consider that succeeding fast. And when they fail, we fail fast and we move on. But what we're doing is we're creating a culture of courage, especially in these times, to keep moving, right? To not let, in many ways, not let the small stuff trip you up.
Sure. Thank you. That's fascinating. That's fascinating to learn. Anyone else would like to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, I think I can add a little bit to what Rich said. So as an employer of record, it's a fascinating place to be in, right? Because we're kind of in the middle, and you've got some companies with loss, but then you actually have some companies with rapid expansion, right? As just the employment model shifts. There's, so those with the rapid expansion, it's crushing to actually find talent, if you can believe it. So we have seen the immediate need for talent and the need to engage talent quickly, efficiently, and then make sure that the talent is strongly vetted in the first place. Sure. So, and in these times, a lot of companies can't afford, the staffing company overhead and actually the timeline it takes to actually find, vet, onboard a customer. So we've been working on the concept of a talent pool feature for kind of quite some time. It allows companies to basically mine their own data, pass vetted employees, save some money on staffing. Our system does all that smart vetting for you, right? And suggests candidates for a given job description based on the data we have on the workplace. We've wanted this feature for a long time. We've talked about it, but we always had, within our product roadmap, all the neat stuff that our other clients, have wanted and kind of deep dives into product features. Well, now during the pandemic, this need for like that quick vetting and efficient vetting has come front and center. So, so we've had to greatly shift and put this front and center as our top priority because companies are leaner now. And again, they're just crushed in some places to find talent quickly. So what we're finding is along our, we've kind of had these long-term goals, and they're huge goals. And they were kind of always, out there in the roadmap while we're doing kind of like touching on these little enhancements.
Right.
Under the pandemic, we found we need to grab those huge, kind of like huge investment far away items and pull them as early as possible. And that actually, I think it's drives innovation for us and drives innovation within the industry, which has been, it's kind of like we're all changing the industry as we're going along in this pandemic. So it's been fascinating to see how you can actually grab some of those risks and kind of big investments and actually invest in them earlier, faster, and get them to market faster.
Thanks, Robyn. That's that's a great segue actually into the next topic, which is building value propositions around data. And I think the questions here are obvious, right? I mean, new requests for analytics and insights, having the right plans in place to own the data, even if you're in a B2B setting, developing the abilities to pull data from systems of record. So Robyn, in your case, I mean, obviously you have a background in data modeling, data visualization, analytics, and so on. Any thoughts about how you are leveraging data to gain a competitive advantage, and any of that has become more salient in recent times?
Yes, I think we are adding a little wave on top of that tsunami of data. So I'm sure you can imagine with the amount of contingent workers we're hiring that are kind of within our system, we've been able to gather some really cool, excellent data points on employment trends in the US and kind of long-term and of course short-term now with the pandemic. So in the US and international markets, of course. But we're actually starting to enhance that data, kind of like layer and layer and layer on top of that data with labor statistics or hiring statistics to actually help our hiring managers make more informed decisions on the trends in their industry by creating enhanced reporting on the very job that they're hiring on in the first place. So I guess that's a quick answer, but that's kind of a quick way we've thought to kind of enhance that huge amount of data and actually make it usable for our hiring managers to make more informed decisions.
Sure.
And I can add to that also, because so in Skillsoft, so we're corporate learning, we've seen a huge spike in learning. So during this pandemic, learning's up 317% for us. So huge increase. And we've been able to use all of that data to power our AI models. So that we are delivering targeted recommendations to each user. And we're using some collaborative filtering AI for a recommendation engine. And now we have all this great new data to be able to teach it. And we're also using a natural language processor called Google BERT to power our search engine. And we also need a lot of data to make that great. And so we've been leveraging the data for AI. We've been also getting, we have a big customer success organization, and we get a lot of requests from our customers to help them build competencies inside their organization. We get about 2,000 requests every month for this. So we built a big database around that. We mine that data to pre-curate learning paths for users so that they're not, you have to curate themselves. So this is a big savings for our clients. It also makes our product better because out of the box, we have all these learning paths. We have over 700 now learning paths that we validated because we've gotten specific customer requests for them.
Sure. And one of the things I'm curious about is, so do you bake it into your contracts that you own the data and you can sort of use it to train your models? How does that work? Do you have an idea?
So we use the data anonymously for our models. We don't need to know who did what transaction. The models themselves will cluster users that have common attributes without using any personal identifying information. So that's how we're able to do it.
You both touched on something that I think is huge. When you're talking about data, and we collect mounds and mounds of data done validity studies to show that our, product is reliable, free of adverse impacts, predictable, and so forth. But it's not just a collection of the data. It's not just what the data means to you, but it's turning that into, Robyn, I think you said usable data, right? Where your client can make sense of this and drive actions from that actionable data. And that's the important piece behind this, I think. I mean, we have a career readiness product where students who have performed internships and are leaving school and going into the workforce, we can provide insights back to them as to how career ready, their supervisors at their internships, felt they are based on their soft skills. But what does that mean to them? What do I do with that? And it's the data is so interesting because it really gives them guidance on where to, not just what the data says, but where to focus some of their attention. And then to the schools themselves to basically show, look, this is where you compared to other universities within the country in terms of these key critical skills, how your students are performing. These are maybe some areas you need to work on. So by highlighting those data in a usable way, really you provide great insights that people can act upon and really improve upon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think the data challenges have gotten harder in current conditions. For our business, where our goal is to allow a company to kind of maintain those feedback loops, right? Maintain those conversations with their employees. Companies are expecting that, employees are expecting that to be preserved, despite the fact that now people are highly virtualized, right? And so, that's created this kind of elongation or the strain on the feedback loops. But increasingly, right now, especially under current conditions, people do expect their voices to be heard, right? And within our solutions, these feedback channels allow us to provide that back to us, in forms that they're most comfortable with, right? Free text and other, and so we've had to, similar to what Potoula was saying, et cetera, we've had to really aggressively advance, the AI, machine learning, married together with natural language processing, in order to make sure that we can convert that feedback into understandable communications, because they just expect, one, that their voice is going to be heard. They expect that you're going to action upon it where appropriate. And that is just now an increasingly sizable amount of data, and especially when they want to turn these fast solutions around. And so we've really had to advance our capabilities in that area under current conditions.
Fascinating discussion. The other issue is one of giving the product a makeover. And going back to Robyn's point, if you suddenly see a surge of demand, then is the product ready to take the performance load? So maybe there's a makeover in terms of the ability to perform. Or if your demographic is changing, then you want to create a different kind of user experience. That's another kind of makeover. So modernizing the user experience, doing performance upgrades, supporting remote delivery, contactless models. I'm sure there are several opportunities for product makeover. I'm imagining that as successful companies, you already have your hands full in terms of attending to new opportunities. But I don't know how you deal with this backlog of modernization and makeover candidates in your roadmap. How do you balance that? Anybody wants to talk about that? Things that are long due?
Yeah, so several years ago, we got the insight that our users evaluate our product, compare it to what happens to them in their consumer lives. So they don't compare Skillsoft to another e-learning platform. They compare us to Amazon, to Netflix, and to Google. Are our recommendations as good as Netflix recommendations? Is it as easy to browse as it is at Netflix? Do we serve up recommendations the way Amazon does? Is search as good as Google? That's what they do, right? So we got that insight a long time ago. So we actually built a UX practice around feature development. Everything we do, we prototype, we test, we iterate before we launch. So that consumer-led user experience is something that we've had in our DNA for a while now. So it hasn't been a makeover that's been pandemic driven. But what we have been doing that's pandemic driven is we've been mining all of our data on all of our analytics throughout our platform to optimize the conversion rates across each piece of it. So we're redesigning now small things like our onboarding process. small things like our search results page to drive the conversion rates incrementally up in those areas. And we also have been doing quite a bit on performance, because with 317% increase in usage, we have done a little bit on performance. So it's primarily in our reporting suite. So yeah, all of the above, I would say, because.
Yeah, no, and that's great. I think, you know, to be able to continuously adapt to user expectations, you will not build a backlog, right? Because, I mean, then you don't need episodic change because you're continuously changing. And that sounds like an ideal situation, but not always. Sometimes you do have a backlog and you have to deal with it.
Oh yeah, there's always a backlog, but what I'm finding is that the customers that asked us for certain enhancements in the backlog don't care about that stuff right now. Those are the things they cared about before the pandemic. Right now, they care about that they can't do face-to-face training anymore, and they need a solution for blended learning that they didn't think they needed. That's the top of their list now. They don't care about the 500 other things they asked for, you know, 6 months ago. So we prioritize continuously. So we are an agile shop, and we go into production with new features every 2 weeks. So we're able to pivot kind of quickly, and we have a design partner program with 25 customers in it. We've had it for several years now. We meet religiously every month with them. And in between, they give us feedback on prototypes, and they do other kind of UX testing with us along the way. So that's how we keep our finger on the pulse. And we are able to diagnose these sort of pivots in what matters to them and how much that's changed recently.
Sure. And the cadence of this design partnership is once a month?
We meet with them every month.
Every month?
And in between the monthly meetings, we have usability testing. So they will see prototypes. They'll serve up people from their organization who can test our prototypes with us.
Perfect.
So one of the big insights we had from this design partner program is that as the pandemic started, and this is an example, Vikas, you gave earlier, but we're seeing it in our own organization as well. As the pandemic started, our clients started to use MS Teams a lot more. So MS Teams has now 75 million daily active users. So their usage has gone up, and we've seen it in our customer base. So we did have a backlog of features that are social features. And now we're actually pivoting our roadmap to being more of an integration with MS Teams to use their native features for the social capabilities, since our clients are now using that tool and they weren't 6 months ago.
Right.
So that's been an interesting pivot for us.
Very, very interesting.
One of the things that we found interesting through our just continued monitoring, really deep monitoring of our customer behaviors, their use of the products, or in some cases, their lack of the use of certain product features. We've really now put a lens on that to help us better understand what's truly most valuable to our customers, because when they're pressed for time, right, when they've got competing priorities under enormous stress and strain, they're going to go to the things that they need the most, right? And in many ways, that's giving us insights, right? Because under other circumstances, you'd ask their feedback for certain capabilities, and they'd say, sure, yeah, it's good. Yeah, we should keep doing that. Yeah, I like to use that, et cetera, et cetera. But when push comes to shove and then they don't, they're really speaking about the value through their usage or lack of, right? And so we've been using that as an opportunity for us to simplify and focus. And so as much as we talked about the things we're launching really fast, the new things we're launching to do, we're also taking the opportunity to many ways to clean house, right? To look at things that are now clearly not represented as the most valuable opportunities for our customers, and we're deprecating those, right? We're closing out things that otherwise would have distracted our focus so that we can simplify and focus better going forward. And not missing this opportunity, right? You know, it's the whole cliche, don't let a crisis go to waste, to really help us better understand what's valuable to our customers and then action upon that.
Got it. And so that sort of brings us to our last topic, which is better integrations and building them proactively. How do you prioritize the spend between feature development and partnership integrations, either through marketplaces or, peer-to-peer, or, based on some integration bus kind of a platform? And what's your take on integration investments? I think this is a big topic, and so I saved it for the last. But anybody wants to talk about this, I'd most love to hear your thoughts. And after this, it's like the thank you slide. So.
I'm happy to start.
Okay.
Okay. We are seeing a ton of demand for integrations right now, and I love it. Again, in our industry, there's quite a workflow in finding, procuring, onboarding, offboarding, training, offboarding talent. And a streamlined workflow, not only saves your employees time, shortens the overall onboarding time, but also cuts down on mistakes or the potential for human error. I was looking up this topic a little bit and saw a 2020 study at Glassdoor that found that organizations with a strong onboarding process improve new hire retention by 82%. And our customers are smart and they know that. So they're pushing to automate every step in this onboarding process. So since our product, Staffing Nation, is where kind of the contingent workers live and are managed, it sort of rests in the middle of that process. So you have ATS and procurement systems at the front of the process, and then HRIS systems and financial systems and provisioning at the back of the process. So we're finding requests for not one, not two, but multiple integrations across the life cycle of the employment and onboarding process. And like somebody said earlier, clients can't always communicate that. It's difficult to understand kind of that more techie side of the integrations. And asking a client, what's your workflow, doesn't always work. It's sometimes we just have to ask, what systems do you live in every day? Or what systems do you log into every day? And that gives us, okay, I think there's a big component for Workday, or there's a big piece with a provisioning system or whatever. And we have to help the customers kind of build their workflow for them in a way, right? Like we're finding we're taking on that consultative approach a bit to kind of start with understanding their own workflow, and then present it to all the different teams that may be involved in that workflow, and make sure that that's the right process for the customer. But we have found that they have this strong need, and maybe can't always explain it, and so we have to help come in and explain it for them, if that makes sense.
We're in the same boat. I mean, integrations has always been a huge part of our strategy. We have a team that's actually just dedicated to just integrations and partnerships. And it goes, Robyn, to a lot of the points you just mentioned, just workflow, cutting down on keystrokes, really allowing people to work out of their system of record where they live for most of their day to drive activity from and receive information into is critical. And it gives you a competitive advantage. When you can provide integrations with more and more partners, it definitely gives you that advantage. And if you can't, it potentially could be it could be a deal breaker in some cases. So being able to do that does a couple things. One, it adds to customer satisfaction and user experience, but it also allows you to create partnerships with a lot of different, we also integrate with ATS and HRIS and job boards and the like. And what you find is, starting when you have a collection of clients that are using a software where it makes sense to create an integration, one, it gives you that justification, that ROI to go to that partner and talk about a joint win for both of you. And then talk about how you can market into each other's bases, how you can kind of leverage that integration for a bigger business opportunity. And we've done that successfully in many different cases. So integrations are critical to workflow, to user experience, to customer satisfaction, but it can be a tremendous line of revenue for you as well.
Same here. Huge part of our customer base accesses our content, which are e-learning courses and books and learning paths, through other platforms. So we have a dedicated product team also that just works on those integrations. We've identified sort of the biggest partners, and we have built connectors that are specific to them so that we get the best user experience out of their specific feature set with our content. And then we have a sort of standards-based, more generic integration to allow the long tail. Because in our industry, there's a huge long tail of learning management systems and homegrown systems that our clients have. And so we have a strategy around integrating with those as well. Big part of what we're doing.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say it's really critical, mission critical for our solutions. Our ability to get the most authentic feedback, to have the most authentic conversations you have to be capturing them in what we refer to as the flow of work, right? Employees don't want other applications. They want to believe that we can capture that when it's the most real to them, the most authentic. And so our ability to integrate with traditional HRIS systems or HCM systems to give us the most up-to-date view of the organization we're engaging with, or just capturing the engagement within the tools that the employees use predominantly, whether it's Slack, Teams, Chatter, all those tools are even just Outlook 365. These are the things that you've got to be integrated with if you're going to capture the most authentic and the most comprehensive feedback.
Perfect. So here's our conclusion. Markets are shifting, and the strategic responses vary. In some cases, stay the course. In some cases, pivot to a new market. And the product managers are sort of caught in between. So they have to address these two horizons, the short term and the long term. Reprioritize your portfolios, build integrations. Those are some of the immediate needs. And then leverage data, do product makeover. Those are some of the long-ranging needs. And we have to sort of juggle this. With this, I'm going to thank you once again and invite Shrikant for his 30-second Harbinger plug. Your time starts now.
Thanks, Vikas, and thanks all of you for sharing your views on how the roadmaps are changing and how you are responding to some of those. Just a very quick, because I think your slide sharing has stopped. Probably.
Sure.
You may want to bring that up.
Certainly.
Cool. So just a very 30-second, like Vikas said, I won't do more than that. Harbinger provides product engineering and data engineering services to primarily product companies based in US and Europe. And we also provide some services to the corporate segment as well. However, while doing that for the last 30 years, we have also developed like a consulting approach. Like we help our customers think about how to do strategy, technology, UX design, product management, work with them hand in hand with our consultants and help them re-engineer, build products, integrate, and come up with solutions. So we work as in a partnership model, and we over the last 30 years, and some of our customers are here thanks to them for sharing their thoughts and ideas. And that's a very short description about Harbinger and what we do, and some of the glimpses you may have seen in the examples that Vikas has quoted. So thanks, Vikas. Over to you for the final part.
Thank you, Shrikant. Good job. The Prime Minister of New Zealand was asked to describe her achievements in 2 minutes, and she went over a little bit. So it's okay to go over a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, there we are on the thank you slide. And I think it's a great accomplishment that we finished almost with a minute to spare. There is one question from Mark. The question for the panelists is, do you look at product line profitability and scalability? Are these dimensions driving portfolio management? Anybody wants to take that?
Yeah, I would completely. Those are tenets of our traditional. I think that they're especially important now because again, you need to focus and simplify where you can. So you do not want to be wasting a lot of unnecessary time on things that don't have confident or predictable profitability or scalability pathways.
Got it. Well, so there we are on the top of the hour. Once again, thank you so much for this. This was a fascinating discussion. I learned a lot. I've made my mental notes. I'll make my physical notes and send you my summary. It'll be good to be in touch, and I look forward to the airplanes starting and me being able to travel to the United States and meet with you all in person someday. In the meantime, stay well, and thanks once again. Do I hand this back to you, Sarita?
Yes, Vikas.
Okay.
I just want to say that what a wonderful session we had and what a wonderful discussion. Thank you, Vikas, and all the panelists for your time today. And in the meanwhile, if anyone from the audience would have more questions, we may not be able to take it now, but please reach out to us at the given email address, and we will definitely get back to you. So again, thank you once again, everyone, and wishing you the best of health and stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Vikash.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye
Thanks,
now.
everyone.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.